Hey guys, I didn't realize it had been that many days since I've done a video, so guess I should probably get one out there. I will definitely try to get some more out tomorrow, for sure. Just been kind of trying to work around other things that I've got going on. I've been working on my quilt. I have a possible online job that I've been trying to, figure out if it's right for me. Okay. So I'm just going to get right into it. This is on harvesting, drying, and processing herbs. So here we go. This is by Dr. Patrick Jones. Okay. Gardening is one of the great joys of life. The act of growing and caring for plants to feed us is deeply satisfying, but growing, harvesting, and using plants to bless and heal others is even more amazing. In past generations, our very survival depended on these daily interactions with God's wonderful green creations. Sadly, many have forgotten what a blessing it can be to feed and heal ourselves without using fast food drive-thrus or synthetic pharmaceuticals. And that's become a big, huge problem. So harvesting and preparing carrots and kale is pretty straightforward, right? But how do we harvest, process, and preserve medicinal plants? Well, the good news is that it isn't that complex. At my home in Idaho, I typically have over 100 different species of medicinal plants growing. Virtually every plant on the property, from the trees to the shrubs to the flowers, is medicinal. And that's the way I'm hoping that I can have it on our property, too. And of course, we can't forget the weeds, which are, for the most part, amazing medicines as well. Harvesting and processing the fruits of this abundant medicinal forest is a pretty simple affair. There are a few basic principles to observe. Let's talk about some of them. The plant is the medicine. The first principle is to understand that the plant is the medicine. In most cases, we don't need to process it or make it into something else in order to use it. Many of our medicinal species are edible foods as well. So if you have a bladder infection, you can take capsules or tinctures of dandelion leaf, but you could also have nice dandelion salads. So why bother harvesting, processing, and storing herbs? Well, sometimes nature isn't very convenient. It's more agreeable to drink a lovely cup of herbal tea than to chew the bark off a tree. It's more convenient to carry a little bottle of tincture in your purse than haul around a bucket of roots. It's also particularly nice to have a jar of herbs on your shelf in January when you really need them. Time to harvest. Timing of harvest. If we're going to process and store medicinal plants, we need to know the best times to harvest them. And how do we do that? Simple. We think like a plant. Herbalists use different parts of the various plants for medicine. Sometimes different parts of the same plant can have very different properties. The four most frequently used plant parts are leaves, flowers, roots, and the inner bark, or the cambium. Try to keep the flies off the salad. Or at various stages of growth, each part of the plant will reach its peak of nutritional and medicinal potency. And how do we know when the time might be? Flies are driving me nuts. We think like a plant. Ask yourself, where is the plant putting its energy at various times of the year? Harvest leaves in the spring when the plant is putting all of its energies and focus into making leaves. Dang it! Freaking bugs. I want to eat that, but I'm trying to make it to where there's no bugs or flies on it. And no, I don't want to put it in the fridge. Harvest roots and inner bark in the fall when the plant is thinking about consolidating resources into the roots and bark for the winter. You can also harvest most roots or barks in the early spring before the plant wakes up and starts really producing summer growth. For plants, with a biennial life cycle, it's important to harvest the roots in the fall of the first year or spring of the second. I already had a bug crawling on my leg. That's when they'll be largest and most potent. Once the second year biennial plant begins to grow, it pulls just about everything useful out of the roots to dedicate resources to leaves, flowers, and seeds. Flowers are best harvested in the late morning or early afternoon when they are really opened up and full of themselves. Tell them they're pretty and lop them off. Remember, too, that almost without exception, it's the entire flower that's the medicine, not just the petals. Many herb references will list aerial parts as the medicine. This just means that everything growing above the ground is good. So for herbs like red clover, peppermint, and lemon balm, don't bother picking off the leaves. Just cut off the top quarter or third of the entire plant and use it all. Remember, too, that these timing principles are just guidelines for optimizing potency. Sorry, guys. Flies are driving me nuts. If you need dandelion roots for your liver in June, dig some up. They'll still be quite good. Location, location, location. Another good principle of herb harvesting is location. Avoid harvesting plants near highways or parking lots. It's a good idea to avoid harvesting on the edges of agricultural fields as well. If you live out west where irrigation systems are everywhere, don't harvest from the banks of the irrigation canals. Yeah, these flies are driving me nuts. They're everywhere. That water will be full of fertilizers, pesticides, and other not-so-fun farm chemicals. We get enough of that stuff in our food. We certainly don't need it in our medicines. When harvesting in the wild, find a spot that's a bit remote and off the beaten path to avoid contaminants or pollutants. Avoid dying. So here's a good tip. Don't harvest wild plants unless you know exactly what you're harvesting. While the great majority of medicinal plants are distinct looking enough to be harvested safely without worry, there are a few that have deadly lookalikes. Most of these are in the parsley family. These plants have white flowers arranged in an umbrella-shaped pattern called an umbel. Among herbalists and edible plant folk, we have a saying, be humble with the umbels. If you aren't absolutely certain of what the plant is, tell it it's pretty and move along. If you want to have plants that you know are safe, buy seeds and plant them on your own property, which is what I'm planning on doing. Then you'll know what you're getting. Two sources I like for herb seeds and live plants are companionplants.com and strictlymedicinalseeds.com. And I think I'm going to go ahead and check them out. That was companionplants.com and strictlymedicinalseeds.com. Be mindful of the plant's needs. Another good harvesting principle is to be mindful of the needs of the plants. If the plants look stressed or diseased, don't use them. Don't harvest too much from a single plant or over-harvest a nice stand of plants you find in the wild. If you harvest carefully so that the plant can quickly recover, you'll get a lot more material from your gardens, and you'll be much more likely to find the same stand of wild plants in the same place next year. Harvest with intention and reverence the process. As you harvest and process your herbs, think about the good they will do. Think about how pretty they are and how grateful you are to have them. Heck, talk with them about it. Plants seem to like that sort of thing, and in my opinion, there's a lot more going on in this world than we can see, measure, or understand. I believe that having a positive, loving attitude when gathering and making medicines can have an impact on the final product. If nothing else, it'll make you feel better and decrease your stress while you're doing it. Drying herbs. The most common way to preserve herbs is simply to dry them. There are a couple of important things to be aware of to protect the vitality and potency of the medicine. First of all, when drying plants, heat and sunlight are not your friends. Direct sunlight or excessive heat can be absolutely devastating to many of the chemicals in harvested plant material. When I dry herbs, I don't use any heat at all. I just spread the plants indoors on wire shelves and put a fan in the room to keep the air moving. Spread the plants out a bit so they aren't piled on each other. This will help them to dry evenly. I buy screen door fabric at the local hardware store to place on the wire shelves to keep the plants from falling through. Chopping the plants before drying facilitates spreading them out and also accelerates the drying process. It's particularly important to cut roots into thin slices or small pieces prior to drying. Trying to grind an intact dried burdock root in your blender will likely lead to the purchase of some new blender blades. Speaking of drying, freeze-drying herbs is great as well. Just be sure that the process doesn't get much hotter than 100 degrees. Many freeze dryers have settings to manage that sort of thing. Grinding herbs. In my herb supplement company, Homegrown Herbalist LLC, we do almost all of our dry herb grinding using high-quality blenders. All of our blenders are Vitamix, and no, they don't pay me anything to say so. Once the herbs are completely dry, they are ground and stored until we are ready to make formula mixes or tinctures. We have a large industrial grinder as well, but honestly, we almost never use it. The blenders are just handy little rascals, and they do the job beautifully. If you aren't going to use your herbs soon, it makes sense not to grind them right away. Dang it. Whole intact herbs will hold on to their potency a little longer than powdered ones. That said, ground herbs take up much less space in the cupboard. You should stop. Storing herbs. Herb storage is a simple affair as well. For home herbalists, glass mason jars are excellent. Just keep them in a cupboard or closet to avoid exposing the herbs to too much light or excessive heat. Food-safe plastic containers are fine as well. Dried herbs you grow yourself have a shelf life of a year or two. If they are around much longer than that, put them in the compost pile and they'll do some good there. If you want your herbs to have a really long shelf life, make a tincture. Speaking of which, don't make tinctures from dried herbs that have sat on your shelf for 2 years. Tincture your herbs right after they've been dried and are more potent. Are most potent. There are a lot of other good tincture making tips, but that will have to be a topic for another article. So those are the basic principles. So those are the basic principles. I encourage you to practice them and fill your life with the blessings of harvesting and using these wonderful plants. Few things will give you more joy, health, and self-reliance. God bless you in your herbal adventures. Dr. Patrick Jones is a practicing veterinarian, traditional naturopath, and clinical herbalist for man and beast. For many years, he's seen the power of herbs bless the lives of his veterinary patients and his human clients. As a result, he has a passion for herbal medicine and an evangelical zeal to teach others about these wonderful plants. And that was it for harvesting, drying, and processing herbs. And I will get this up there, and I will see you guys in the next one, which probably won't be tonight. So, at least wanted to get another one out there, and I will see you guys as soon as I can. Remember, guys, do your research on all this stuff. The herbal, medicinal plants, all of that stuff. Do your research on all of it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are not. Always check your subscriptions to make sure you are still subscribed. Make sure you click on the notification bell and click on all so you get all the notifications. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.